Welcome to the Real Estate Power Play Podcast, your launch pad for skyrocketing success in real estate investing. I'm your host, Gabe Rodarte, alongside Mark Monroe. We're ready to bring you transformative stories, groundbreaking strategies, and the insider secrets of real estate giants. Get ready to accelerate your investment journey and become a true power player in the world of real estate.
Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Power Play. My name is Mark Monroe, and we have another amazing episode this week. And I'm happy to have Tom on. And I've known Tom for what, about 2 years now, Tom, roughly? Is that what you guys?
Yeah, roughly. I mean, just a hair over, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. A little bit. So, we've done actually a couple of deals. Tom, why don't you kind of introduce yourself a little bit, and then we can kind of just talk a little bit. So, where are you located, Tom?
My wife and I live just south of Washington, D.C. in Stafford County, kind of next to Quantico Marine Corps Base. I spent a little over 26 years in the Army, doing a lot of high-level analysis at headquarters and stuff. I was a logistician as well, and then did force management analysis, which is kind of what units look like, where they're going, do what to who, and spent a lot of time doing budgets for the Army, building the budgets, the POM, the long-term budgets. Retired at the end of midway through 2019, and went right back to work for the Department of Defense as an analyst. So I've just always kind of been really in tune and tied in with doing analytical stuff at higher levels.
Nice.
Met my wife back in 2020-ish, met her at yoga. I was going through a divorce at the time, and so I went to do yoga kind of as a stress reliever, and she was doing yoga. We met. She was kind of going through the same thing. She was involved in real estate and stuff. I was just kind of getting my fingers wet in it. I had a single family I was living in that I was doing an Airbnb out of, but had a desire to do a little bit more. Teresa had been real successful with some fix and flips and some single families. So we met, we went out for a little while. We got married just a little over 3 years ago. And since then we have, starting in about 2021, shortly after we married, we decided we wanted to kind of expand a little bit, kind of grow with our real estate investing. We both had W-2 jobs, and just the day-to-day grind of managing like 9 single family doors by ourselves. It was a lot with kids, 2 teenagers at the time, in high school. So we decided to kind of expand a little bit, got into commercial real estate. We've done some limited partner investing. Now we're doing joint ventures, general partners. We've also done some lending of cash for short-term deals, and some capital raising.
Awesome. So when you say lending, that's kind of also, if you guys are out there listening, that's also known as a gator lending. But we also call it transactional funding. So that's great. You guys got everything tipped. So yeah, Tom, we met, like I said, we met a little bit more than 2 years ago in Orlando. I think we actually met online first. I think we might have even met in the earlier days, and we met up in Orlando. Excuse me, sorry about that. My allergies are kicking in a little bit here.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm a little stuffy at the moment. So I was just in Vermont, beautiful foliage, and you guys are starting to get the foliage now down in your area. Is it starting to happen?
I was just noticing we've just in the last 4 or 5 days have kind of had a little bit of that's a cold snap. I wouldn't really call it cold. It's, getting down into the 40s at night. But there's definitely some leaves falling and some trees are starting. I was noticing today starting to get a little bit of color down here. And I'm hoping, because we've had a fair amount of rain recently, that maybe we'll actually get some good color as opposed to just it goes green to brown.
Yeah, I was kind of like that in Vermont. They actually had Saturday night, they had Friday night, they had snow on the mountain up there in Killington. I was like,
Oh,
It
really?
was cold.
Yeah.
I'm in Florida, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go home. It was beautiful, nice, wearing all the fall clothes. But yeah, so Tom, let's talk a little bit, because you and I, we've connected, and we've actually done a deal together in the mobile home park community on that. So Let's talk a little bit like what you do in your analytics, like because I know you're huge. Everybody turns to you about underwriting, and for people listening, why don't you kind of go through that a little bit? Like, what do you look at? Let's take one type of asset, let's say multifamily. That's what everybody's kind of like, kind of walk people through like your thought process when you're looking at a multifamily deal.
Well, so yeah, because of my analytical background with the being in the Army and the Department of Defense, it's just kind of it's something that's just very natural for me. Being able to take and look at data and try to make it tell a story, paint a picture with it, and that's really kind of what underwriting is. It's the foundation of any real estate, whether it's commercial or otherwise, investment. Because what it does is it takes a look at the sources of income that are coming in, the expenses that exist currently, and then you have to project that out and figure, okay, based on what we really think this could be, looking at what the potential rental income can be, the what we think expenses, what we can get them down to, and getting a really good basis for that particular market is critical to that. You got to know the market that you're working in, because you need to kind of know how far can you push rents, um, what are the income levels in that area that will drive how much rent people can generally pay. What kind of industry and such is in the area? You want it to be a growing market with a good, not necessarily industrial base, but a good jobs base. So you don't want to go into a community where really the only game in town is like a hospital or something. Those are great. They drive, housing needs, but you need to have things that kind of help support that. Because if the people move away, the hospital goes away. So I always look at really hard at what the population is, what the jobs are like, what's coming in with industry and stuff. There's certain parts of the country that I really like because of that, like the little triangle down around Raleigh, Durham, down in North Carolina. That's a great area, a lot of technology and stuff coming in. The market in the Midwest, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Cincinnati, Columbus, Fort Wayne, that area, the market's really strong. Whereas a lot of areas, you have to think about also what have rents done there recently. Austin a few years back, it was hot. It was just, rents were going up and everybody's like, oh, this is a great place to invest. But the problem is that they hit a peak and now they've just kind of leveled off and started to kind of ease down a little bit. So you have to be aware of those trends. Where are they happening? And what is the likelihood that that's going to continue down the road? I prefer myself, COVID changed a lot of things and a lot of these markets took off because of that. I prefer to kind of maybe find something where the growth is a little more stable, because you're not going to get these peaks and then maybe a little bit of a downturn like you got in Austin and some other markets that were really hot at the time. And that's one of the reasons I do like the Midwest, is that it's fairly stable.
Are you looking at areas where there's a lot of inventory coming online? Do you look at that as well?
You got to think about that. I live just north of Richmond, and so that's a market that we spend a lot of time looking at. But they have, in the last couple of years, they've really had a huge glut of brand new apartments being built. And, we're talking 100, 200 units at a pop, and just a whole bunch of them. There's a little stretch down 95 where like 3 of them popped up. There's some stuff coming up a little bit to the further west of downtown that stuff is popping up. So it's really saturated. And the problem is that these are newer, nicer places. And if they can't fill them, class A, class B, if they can't fill them, they're going to lower the rent down. So if you got a class A place that's got to lower its rates down to what class B people are paying, well, if you've got a class B asset, somebody's not going to rent your thing. They're going to go to the class A asset. And then that just kind of pushes down. Same thing with the B down to the C. So you really do have to be careful about what the saturation is and the ability of that particular area to absorb that.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's something I'm starting to see. Like, for a while there, everybody was moving to Florida. We still have a shorting
Mhm.
housing. Geez, I can't speak today. But I do see a ton of inventory coming online, especially multifamily,
Right.
all the way like Orlando, going all the way up through Daytona, Jacksonville. There's a lot of inventory coming on. I'm just scratching my head like, okay, we're going to see how this plays out. But at the moment, we still need housing, but there's got to be some point it's going to have to adjust a little bit. And we're starting to see, like on the
Something's got
residential,
to
we're starting
give.
to, yep.
Yeah,
So what
something's got
else
to
do you
give.
look at besides the jobs and area? Like, let's take a look at an asset now. Let's like when you have a property, you like the area, it passes all the area of what you're looking for the growth. What else do you look at now within the asset?
Well, kind of some of my hard rules of thumb. And let's talk multifamily. I like 1980s or newer, and that's for a couple reasons. In the 70s, there were some issues with some wire, aluminum wiring. There's some electrical panels that were used back in that time that are not the greatest. So I like 1980s or newer. I like to stay away from flat roofs. I just don't like them. They're more susceptible to leaking, particularly if you're in an area where there's snowfall. I prefer a pitched roof. I prefer an area where the population over the last at least 3 decades shows an upward tick, maybe at least 5% per year. You don't want to find an area where the population's going down. Um, Crime is a big thing for me. I'm not looking to invest in an area where crime is just really bad. I'd like a Class C. I love a good Class C, but I don't want to. I'm not going to invest my money somewhere that I would not feel safe putting my family. And that's kind of the bottom line with that.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. When I purchase an asset or I'm purchasing property, would I live there? That's how I look at it.
Yes, exactly.
Would you put your mother in that property or your father?
Exactly. There's places I would live that I would not put my family, but if I'm not willing to put my family there, or like you said, my mother, and that's a great way to put. I'm just not interested. I'm sorry.
Nice.
I'm not gonna. I don't want to be that guy.
And all right, so I like that. So let's talk a little bit now, like when you find an asset, when you go through the underwriting, what are you looking at? You're looking at like you mentioned, you're looking at the roofs. Are you looking at what the value at, if it's a value add play, or if you increase the rents? What are you looking at that point?
So it's a lot of things. I will start out with obviously I want to look at the rent roll for that property. What's it done over time? And I want to see at least 12 months, if not 24 or more. So you can kind of get a trend for how long are people staying there? What is the delinquency like? What's the occupancy like? I want to look at the trailing 12, T12, at least T12 when I initially underwrite to get an idea of what are the expenses that are going out, and where are there opportunities to maybe be a little more efficient with how much your expenses are. And then also want to take a look at what is the condition of the property. That could be a big driver for maybe why they're not getting the rents they should be getting. So you want to know, how much CapEx do I have to put into it? Is it really just they've taken pretty good care of it, and I need to maybe go in and throw some paint around and fix a few things up? Or is it this place is really falling apart and there's balconies that need to be redone and siding that's got to be redone, and the roof is 35 years old. So I look at that real hard. I also want to look at what are the taxes and the insurance like in that area. Insurance is something that can eat your lunch. We invested in a property in Texas a number of years back before the big hurricane went through there, 2.5 years ago. And great deal. And other than the fact that the insurance went through the roof and kind of killed the deal for about a year and a half, everything is run into performance. The rents are where they're supposed to be. The occupancy is where they're supposed to be. And if it wasn't for the fact that these insurance rates literally tripled, it would be doing a lot better. So you want to think about that. You want to think about what the insurance is, what it could be. You want to think about taxes. How are the taxes calculated in that area? And what have the tax rates done historically over time? Some places will recalculate taxes every year. Some will do it every 3 years, 5 years, whatever. Some may only do it upon sale. So once you buy it, that may be the tax rate that the assessed value may be what you have for the whole period that you own it. So you need to understand that. That's part of what knowing your market is about. And that's not terribly hard to find if you don't know the market. But speaking of the market, you really want to kind of get a good feel for that. And down, not even just to the zip code, but almost to the block of where it is that you want to procure. Once again, what's crime like? How are rents doing in that area? You could be looking at something like Rentometer or something, and it says, oh yeah, rents within a mile are, $1,500 a month, and you're only getting like $875 at this place. But there can be a huge difference in that mile. It might be on the other side of the river. It could be, this is a really bad part of town. This is a great part of town. If you can have some conversations with maybe the Chamber of Commerce or building officials in that area to kind of get a feel for, what kind of incentives might they provide you to help fix up a particular place. There's areas that they're trying to regentrify, and they may be willing to throw you some tax breaks if you will buy something, clean it up, fix it up. Local banks may be able to do the same thing for you. If you've got a place that's fairly well established and you've got 90% occupancy, and it's just really a matter of trying to be a little more efficient with it, you can go with like a federally backed Fannie or Freddie loan. But if it's something where the occupancy is like 60, 70%, it needs a lot of work and some fixing up that's got to happen, you're probably going to have to go with like a local bank. So you want to have some relationships built up in whatever areas you prefer to kind of work in, so that you understand what kind of rates they can get, what they are willing to do and not willing to do, the kind of terms that they'll offer. And then I guess the last thing is think about what that population, what it is that they really want and need in their housing. I'll give an example. I'm a partner in a property that's in Anchorage, Alaska, and they are in no way, shape, or form really interested in really nice countertops and fancy cabinets and fancy appliances. They don't care. They want it to be functional. They want it to be warm. They want it to be clean. So you don't want to over improve. That's not a good thing. But if you're maybe in somewhere that's maybe metropolitan part of Kansas City, and maybe it's in an area where there's a lot more technology kind of stuff going in, you maybe do want to consider the market here can maybe support granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, and redoing cabinets versus just painting them. Conversely, that market could also be, well, there's already a whole lot of that. Maybe we need to do something a little bit less. Think about the housing, the workforce, the people that are going to be living there. Workforce housing is a great way to go. The RV parks that we're partners on, it is strictly workforce housing, really. So once again, it's not something you really have a need to over improve. Make it safe, make it clean, make it functional. Make sure it's warm or cool in the summer, and that's what makes the customers happy. There are some value add things that you could probably do. Is it a place with families, or is it a place with just single people? If it's a place with families, maybe consider like a playground or things to occupy the children. If it's workforce, maybe consider some kind of exercise area or gym. Think about dog parks. Think about things that they would maybe want to do or to have for value add. I keep a huge list of different value add things that you can do depending on maybe what the market can support. It's everything from, maybe a small Frisbee golf course to dog park, to playgrounds, to climbing structures, to reserved parking, covered parking, a little business area, maybe a little movie theater area. There's just a ton of things that you can do for value add for the customers to help support making it a better
Is that
place.
something that you think that you would want, or are you thinking of people there? Like, you may want certain things, but then you said earlier, like, take Alaska, we would want something a little bit nicer, but up there, I guess, so I guess you have to think in their mindset of what's going on in that market versus what we want as investors,
Exactly.
I guess.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And some of those things I would appreciate having, but think it's not for me. It's not about me. It's about what is it that the people that are going to live in my property, what would they like to have that would add value to their life? And that's what it's really about.
So how do you look at a deal where, we get, and I get this all the time, and I'm curious how you look at it. It's a mom and pop investor, say it's like, I don't know, 25 doors, and his books are a mess. How do you underwrite something like that? Yeah, we all come across it, they've owned it for 15, 20 years, and they're not up to the date with the technology. How do you go through that process? Because a lot of times they're taking cash and what they're doing.
Yeah, well, that's tough, and I've come across a lot of those. We love a good mom and pop fixer upper, a good value add opportunity. They've owned it forever, and they're just getting tired, and they want to get rid of it. So that presents a lot of opportunities, but as you said, sometimes they're mom and pop, and they do a lot of their bookkeeping and accounting on a tablet and a piece of paper, and they're not necessarily as technically proficient maybe as we would like them to be. So their books can be a mess. I mean, I've gotten stuff where everything was handwritten and like, this is my T12. These are my expenses for the year. I added my stuff up, or it's just a spreadsheet. And that doesn't mean that it's not necessarily a good opportunity. It's just a little harder to figure it out. So yeah, you kind of want to know where they're at right now so you can get an idea of what's working or not working. But I think if you really focus in those instances, what can it be? What do we think the potential is of this based on comps in the area or other stuff that you've done in the area and ways that you think you can kind of bring this up? If there's any really bad things that are maybe hidden by the lack of doing the diligent type of accounting that most places do, it'll show up for you when you do your really deep dive into your due diligence. That's when things will come out, because that's when you're gonna look at the last 3 years of tax returns and see what did they report to Uncle Sam on their tax return for this. That's one of the best things you can use when you have this really I'm going to call it sketchy, shoddy's maybe a better word, accounting practices that they've been using for the last few years.
So how do you handle that? Because most of those guys are trying to write everything off because they want to handle taxes.
Right.
How do you handle that? Because a lot of times, they're adding personal expenses into that LLC. So, that's you back those out, or how do you determine that when you're underwriting it?
Well, once again, you may not know what they were claiming and not claiming as actual business expense versus not business expense. So that's why I say, it's okay to try to get that level of understanding of what are they doing. But if you procure the place and you've got the background and experience of a place like this should run like this, you can at least figure out how much should it be able to make, aside from whatever he was doing. At least from this point forward, what do we think it can do? And that really comes down to looking at the condition of the property. What are the rents that are being paid? To the degree that you can figure it out, what are some expenses you're going to be able to figure out? Electricity and water, taxes won't be that hard, insurance won't be that hard. What are they spending on maintenance people? What are they spending on legal expenses and office expenses and personnel? Those are things you can kind of figure out if you have some level of understanding of what that market is and does currently. And that's really just the best that you can do with that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, we all come across them. And then at the same time, when you go to get financing, even though you're underwriting it, the underwriters and financing, that's going to be a challenge even more so because they're going to look at
Yes.
those. And typically, what do you find? You have to kind of do a cash sale at first when you come across a deal like that. What do you normally find?
Well, so just as you're going to underwrite a property to see if it's worth you taking your time and doing it, the bank's going to do the same thing. They're going to want to look at all the same documents that you looked at. So it does present a problem when the previous owner's accounting is a little bit unclear, I'll say. So that's where maybe having that relationship with a local bank in an area can be helpful because they, number one, they get to know you, they know, like, and trust you, particularly if you've got a track record in that area of taking places and doing something. That's so helpful. And you may just have to really sit down with them and explain to them face to face. Big banks, Fannie, Freddie, they're not going to really probably be interested in that so much. But the smaller banks probably will be more interested in doing
Nice.
something like that.
Or do what I recommend. Mr. Seller, I'm sorry, your books are a mess. We can't get you the price you need. We got to be a discount, or let's do
Yes,
seller financing.
absolutely. I
I love
love
seller
seller
financing.
financing. Seller
Yep.
financing is great because particularly if you can lay it out to them in terms that they can understand of, here's what I'll do for you, is that instead of me going to the bank and getting a loan and giving them, 7% of the amount, I'll give you 5% of the amount. And then, so here's how much you'll make each month, each quarter, each year, whatever, that we will be paying you over time, and we can do interest only for a period and maybe kick in some principal. And so you lay it out to them in terms of, yes, you're selling me this for $1 million, but if you hold the note on the million, you're going to get your million at some point, but you're going to get this much money every single year that goes on top of that. Now, what that also allows them to do is they're still holding the note. So if I screw up and I don't, do whatever, they can foreclose on me. They still have the property and they've already made some money on it. And chances are I put some money into it, fixing it up. They get all that for free. So it's very beneficial to them. There's also some tax benefits for them on that, in that they're not getting a big, huge chunk of money all at once that Uncle Sugar is going to want to take a big piece of. You can kind of spread that out over a little bit more time. So I had a deal that I looked at with a guy where they did not want the amount of income that they would get from it to exceed a certain amount because it had to do with their taxes and their retirement. And so we were able to structure it in a way that it met their needs over time. At a certain point, yes, it's going to be sold and they're going to get it and they understand it. But at least in the meantime, they're able to kind of stretch that out and not create this huge liability for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I love seller financing. You can pay them more. I had this one
Yeah.
in Kentucky,
Yes.
61 units, and the seller, she wanted 5.7, but it was really worth 4.5.
Right.
But I told her I'll get her 5.7 over 7 years. And what I did is just calculated the interest and see what she was going to make off of holding the note. And she
Right.
got her 5.7 and she was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
That's all she wanted.
Yeah,
It's
I
key.
can give you the price you're asking, but I'm going to have to go to a commercial bank. And so, those two things don't meet up in the middle. So I'm going to have to give you less if I got to go to a commercial bank. Now, if you're willing to take 5%, 4%, 5% interest, I can give you more money. You'll make more money. Plus, on top of that, the interest, we're right up where exactly you want to be. You're just not getting it all right now.
Absolutely. So we're gonna jump into one more topic here, a little bit about now that you won the underwriting, you're under contract.
Mhm.
Um, Well, first of all, let's just touch base real quick on what you recommend that you should definitely put in a contract for terms to protect yourself as a buyer. And then let's just spend a couple minutes on what you look at during that due diligence period and how long do you do that due diligence period? And, let's kind of just touch base on that briefly.
So I prefer to have at least 45 days, if not more, to do due diligence, because you're counting on not just them to give you documents, but things that you need to be able to research and get into to really kind of dig into it when you're spending the time. So I prefer to have at least 45 days and then another 45 after that to close. The things that I'm looking at in there, I'm getting into every single little aspect of anything that financial that could be in there. I'm looking to see if they have any contracts with vendors. I'm looking at what they're paying for utilities. I'm looking at their tax returns. I'm digging into what kind of CapEx have they done over the past few years. Documents, copies of leases. I want 5 years of profit and loss if I can get it. 12 months of bank statements to back it up. Third-party reports, as I said, surveys, deeds, title, mortgage documents, tax documents, insurance documents, all that stuff. You really have to kind of dig into it because you don't want to find out that there's some surprises. So to help avoid that, what you want to do when you put it under contract is that you're going to probably give some earnest money up front. Usually it's about 1%. And at a certain point, that earnest money goes hard, which means you will not get it back. So what you want to build into your contract, first of all, is a due diligence period where if up until the due diligence period ends, you can cancel the contract because of something you found you didn't like that doesn't live up to what was kind of represented as being, this is the situation here. You want to probably try to build in where you can buy some additional time, maybe for another 0.5%, might be another % of the purchase price to get a little more due diligence time. You may lose the first little chunk of due diligence, but at least it keeps you from going over the edge and having to close on something or getting sued because you didn't. You want to make sure that you build in something that says if financing for whatever reason doesn't come through, that's a legitimate reason to cancel the deal and perhaps even get your due diligence money back. And those are the big things. You have to take kind of each individual project and look at what are the potential pitfalls that I may encounter with this, and just make sure you build into your purchase and sale agreement ways to get out based on those things.
Nice. Yep, that's good. And what do you think is the biggest thing that you run into when you're going through a due diligence period where you where you end up canceling? Where was it something that was misrepresentative or inspection? What do you think is the biggest thing that you always come across where people should look for?
Frankly, the biggest thing that I've seen is where the property is not in the condition that they say it's in. You have got to, when you're doing your due diligence, you've got to go into every single nook and cranny in that property, every single room, every single unit. It doesn't matter. You've got to look at them. I've known people that they were not told that there was some conditions, and there was this one place where they opened the door and the walls were just black, and they did not find this out until after they had actually gone under contract. There were some units that when they toured it the first time, that the owner and landlord, property management people would not let them go in there. Oh, you can't go in there, somebody's in there. But I can show you this one, it's just like it. And then when they finally got to the point where they're doing the due diligence, these were pre-due diligence inspections before they put it under contract. When they finally got to doing that and they went in these rooms, it was like, okay, this is a problem. And it wasn't just like one, it was a whole bunch of units were like that.
I think I remember seeing photos on that one floating around.
Yes.
We're all like, our mouths were jaw dropping on that one because I've
Exactly.
never seen anything that bad.
Yes.
That was crazy.
And it's like, you don't even want to go in there and look because it's a health hazard. So
And
it's
they
not just
even like were
that unit,
pulling back
it's
the
adjoining unit.
wallpaper, and it was behind the wallpaper. Remember that
Yeah.
too? I was like
Yes.
shocked.
So that's why you really have to go in there. And when you go in and do that, it's best that you have with you somebody that you trust as like a general contractor to look at this stuff with you. You need to scope pipes. You need to get up on the roof. You need to get in the attic. You need to have your contractor with you that can point out something that maybe you might not see that because of that's their little area of expertise that they'll notice that go, hey, this could be a problem. You've got this huge tree right here next to where this sewer pipe runs. This can be a problem. Um, you don't know what's underground. Scope those pipes. Are they cast iron? Are they clay? Are they PVC? Are they metal? What are they? You need to look at those. But
Yeah.
yeah, generally it's the biggest thing I think is the condition of the property and the amount that it will take to bring it up to the standard that you underwrote to.
Nice.
But that's
Eh,
an opportunity for you to, go back and say, hey, this is not $100,000 in CapEx. This is 500,000 in CapEx. I need you to knock $400,000 off the price.
Yep. And how many times we all been through it, and usually it's just you go back and forth and negotiate a little bit more. So what do you think, the number one, you coming into real estate, getting into the commercial underwriting, what do you think is like the biggest aha moment that you were like, oh wow, I want to be in this type of asset class, or I want to be in this, commercial versus residential? What was your eye-opening experience, do you think that was for you?
I would say two things. Number one is in terms of asset class, I like multifamily. I kind of like self-storage. Have recently gotten into mobile home parks and I really like them. And I like them because they are a very stable, solid asset class. You don't really get the fluctuations that you may get with the class A, B, and C multifamily. Um, Mobile homes are the lowest cost form of acceptable housing that there is. So what that means is that they're very resilient in the economy. If the economy is not doing well, people still have to live somewhere. Mobile homes are very affordable. They're low cost. Typically, when you set up a mobile home somewhere, 90% of them never move again. So they're very stable. Low barrier to entry because of the cost. So I really like that asset class. I do like the multifamily as well. I'm more of I like to find C class that's coming up to B. That's kind of my little sweet spot there. Just over time, I have found that. The other big aha thing is um, who is your team? It is a team sport, 100%. You can't be good at everything. You need to understand all the facets of commercial real estate investing, from underwriting to finding deals to property management to construction to getting financing to raising capital. You need to understand how all those pieces work so that you can talk intelligently about it. But you can't really be the expert in all of those things. So you need to find and build you a team. And I'm kind of introverted, so I'm not really to go out and network and talk to brokers all day and stuff. That's not my little bailiwick. Now, my beautiful wife, Teresa, she is great at that. She excels at that. But put a spreadsheet in front of her and ask her to do something analytical and her mind will explode. So, so you have to we complement each other really well there, but you need to find people that have those skill sets and can bring that to the table. Find somebody who's really good at finding deals and talking to people. Find somebody that really understands finances and has really good in with banks. Find people that are really good capital raisers. Find people that have a lot of knowledge about construction that can help provide that capability, because that's a certain niche. And that's a different little niche for each little market that you're in, because costs are different. They tend to have a much better understanding of what the zoning regulations are. So when you're doing your underwriting, if you're doing a fairly heavy lift, you need to know, well, how long is this going to take me? Because if it's 6 months just to get through city and county before you even start to, drive a nail or start to rip stuff out, you need to understand that and build that into your underwriting timeline. So having that solid team of people like, and trust is so important. And I can't stress that enough. I've been in some deals with people that turned out to not be what I thought they were. Because once you get into a deal with somebody, you're kind of getting in bed with them for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Just do your due diligence on your partners as well.
Yeah. I call it a marriage.
Yeah.
You're in a marriage with them. That's
I
really what
heard
it comes down
somebody
to.
saying the other day, I can't remember where it was I heard it, but you know how you do background checks on your tenants? This guy does background checks on his partners.
Interesting.
Yes.
Smart.
Yes.
Really is smart,
Yeah.
especially in some of the bigger deals. So speaking of that, what just came in my mailbox about 2 hours ago, we should talk. I have a storage facility that's and the seller's willing to do some seller financing on it. So we should talk.
Okay. Let's shoot it over. I'll take a look at it. Where's it at?
Cedars Rapids.
Okay.
So
shoot it over. I'll
we'll
take a look
definitely
at it. And I think I know some people up that way that can even go just kind of put some eyeballs on it.
I have somebody there. That's where it came in, boots on the ground.
That's even better. That's always important. If you're not geographically in that area, you got to have somebody that's boots on the ground. That's the other big piece. A good, solid operator, somebody that has a history of being successful at running that asset class and that is there and will be there and keep an eye on the place and do what's necessary.
So the person that brought the deal wouldn't be an operator that brought it, but he still could be boots on the ground, and I'm sure we can probably connect with somebody.
Yeah,
so
that's still critical.
Yeah. So Tom, is there a question that I did not ask you that I should have asked you?
No, you were very thorough, very thorough. I appreciate
it. Tom, how can everybody reach out to you? I know you're always, you're looking for so many different things. I know Teresa is on one side. She's always out there raising the capital. We've done some deals together as well. Underwriting. So you have your information behind you, but for people listening on the podcast, they may not be seeing what's behind you, the phone numbers and your names and everything. So why don't you give everybody your contact?
You can reach out to Teresa and myself. My number is 703-987-5812, or you can get me at info@Alliance ACQ, that's for acquisitions, ALLIANCE, or you can get a hold of Teresa at simplyfreemd.com. And her number is 317-828-2244. And that's the best way to get a hold of us.
And we'll also, wherever you're listening to this podcast from, if you're watching on video or anything, we'll also have their contact information below. So you should be able to click on the links from there and be able to reach out to them through social media as well. But we'll also have their phone numbers there. So Tom, it's always a pleasure. I've always enjoyed you and Teresa. You guys are great people. If it wasn't for your wife, we probably wouldn't have met. With her network.
It's her fault, right? No, we appreciate you, Mark. We appreciate your wisdom and your guidance. And you are without a doubt the smartest person I know about structuring deals differently than the typical thing. You're good at that. The sub-2, all that stuff.
Yeah, I enjoy it. It's just how creative can you be to do it, as long as within regulations, but make it a win for everybody. It's a win for the seller, win for the buyer, win for us as investors. It's just, that's what it really comes down to. Just
that is the key right there. Try to make it a win-win.
So, all right. So anyways, thanks so much for coming on, Tom. For everybody listening to our podcast today, wherever you're listening to us, please like, share. If there's anything that you want us to talk about, please reach out. We'll be more than happy. So once again, thank you guys for listening to us on Real Estate Power Play. Take care, guys.
Appreciate you. Thank you.